What's up, everyone? Thanks for jumping into the cryptoverse. We're going to go over Litecoin today. We're going to cover basically these long-term momentum shifts that you see occur with Litecoin. If you guys like this sort of content, please like and subscribe because I'll post future updates so that we can stay on top of where Litecoin is. So we're going to go over Litecoin with respect to USD as well as Bitcoin. And we're also going to look at the Bitcoin chart because it's really difficult to understand Litecoin without understanding what Bitcoin's doing. So, these large moves here that you see actually occur at very noticeable times, and they occur in patterns. So, if you're not familiar with when they occur, they typically occur when Bitcoin reaches a previous all-time high, which occurred here in around October, November of 2013. So if we go to October, November of 2013, which is right around, I'm off a little bit, it's over here. So right here, you can see that this corresponded roughly to when Bitcoin reached this previous all-time high, and then that's when Litecoin took off. So remember, in October, November of 2013, once Bitcoin reached its previous all-time highs, when Litecoin had this spike with respect to US dollar. After that, it typically falls, and it did it over here too. So after you see this spike, then we see this long retracement during a bear market. Okay, following this retracement, we get to the halving year. So the first spike you see here, that's not nearly as large as when Bitcoin hits a previous all-time high, it occurs a few months before the halving. So if you've ever heard the rumor, or if you've ever heard the advice buy the rumor, sell the news, it's kind of important actually, because with Litecoin and with a lot of other coins, the valuation of something typically occurs before it actually happens. And so you can see back in 2015, leading up to the halving, Litecoin saw a pretty significant gain. So it actually saw, if we take a measured move, if we go from the bottom down here up to the top, we're not going to go to the top of the wick, we're just interested in the candles. It had a 300% increase, okay? Now the increase over here was much more significant. So if we go to just the top of the candle, 1800%. So while 300% is dwarfed by 1800%, this is still a lot of money leaving on the table if you're unaware of kind of the general trend that Litecoin trades by. So if we move forward, after this halving, we see a retracement, but it's a much smaller retracement than over here. So if we take another measured move from the top to the bottom, we can see it's negative 96%. Now, I mean, it's incredible that Litecoin saw this type of retracement and still went on to go 10x from its previous all-time high after a 96% retracement. So, I should clarify that, past history does not guarantee anything in the future, but if you had used sort of this pattern over here to time your entrance and exit points over here, you would have done quite well. So if we take a measured move from the top of this run leading up to the halving down to the bottom, you can see it's much more manageable. It's only about 47% loss. So a recap here. When Bitcoin hits a previous all-time high, we see a huge run up, almost 2,000%. It's followed by a negative 96% retracement. Then when we get to the halving year, we see an increase of 300%, followed by a 50% retracement. And then we see an accumulation period after this decrease of about 560 days. Okay, that shouldn't have a price on it because I'm not measuring the price here. Let me try to remove this. Okay, so we're gonna just take a date measurement from right here all the way to here. So it was 82 weeks or 574 days. Okay, so then what happened? What happened in March of 2017? So if we go back to the BLX and we go all the way over to March of 2017, you can see it occurs around the time that Bitcoin hit its previous all-time high from the previous cycle. Okay? So if we go back to Litecoin, you can see it corresponds to when Bitcoin hit its previous all-time high here. So it had another large run-up. And I should note that this run-up in Litecoin basically follows Bitcoin. Some other coins follow different patterns. Ethereum, I have another video on that. It follows a different pattern than Litecoin does. But with Litecoin, if we were to take another measured move from down here all the way up to this top region up here, you can see that it is 8,400%. Okay? That's pretty significant. Let's move this over here so we can see what's going on. All right, so 8,800%, 8,863. And this occurred over a very long time frame, actually. This was over 280 days versus 63 days. So you can kind of see that this cycle got a bit longer the second time around. Now, what happened following this large increase? Well, again, we saw a large retracement that was around 92%. So you can see it's following a very similar pattern. When Bitcoin hit the previous all-time high, that's when Litecoin, it's time to shine. And it will shine so long as Bitcoin does. But not until Bitcoin hits its previous all-time high once it reaches this accumulation phase. All right, then what happened? After this long retracement, we entered the halving year, just like we did last time. I know it's getting kind of messy, but I hope you guys are following along here. So what happened with the halving year? So before the halving, which happened in the summer, like it did over here, we saw another 500% increase. Over here, it was a 300% increase, okay? After this increase, we have currently seen a negative 61% retracement, which is more than we saw over here. But you kind of get an idea of, these levels of gains and losses. So gains occur when Bitcoin hits previous all-time high. You're going to see significant losses after Bitcoin breaks that 20-week moving average. So you might say, well, how do I know when to get out? Well, historically, if you just look at the BLX on a weekly time frame, Bitcoin is in a bull market whenever it's above the 20-week. It holds it as support. When it's in a bear market, it's below the 20-week, okay? Here's the bull market. It holds it as support. When it goes below it, it holds it as resistance, bear market. Here, it's clear cut that it's holding the 20-week as support all the way up. When it goes below it and holding it as resistance, it's a bear market. Okay, so you can use that. If Bitcoin goes below the 20-week moving average, then it's probably a good time to, maybe move some of your holdings around to try to lock in some of those gains. All right, we're going to go ahead and remove all these things so we can see what's going on here. All right, so what does this mean exactly? So where are we now? So you can see that we've recently had this this spike due to the impending halving, and then leading into the halving, we saw a large retracement. Now currently, we're basically holding the 200-week moving average as support. We're hovering right around this region. So what I'm looking to happen is to at some point find either at the 200-week moving average or somewhere nearby. I think we're going to find support, and we're going to stay on that line. So if you can see that this support line over here that carried us for about 2 years almost, if we just draw a line at that level, so we'll draw a line. Oh, sorry about that. Sorry, it's not. Okay, there we go. So if we just put a line here, where this support region was, sorry, I'm not drawing it straight. All right, so if we hold this level of, you can see it kind of corresponds to this this drop off right here. Sorry, I was drawing it wrong. So basically, right before Litecoin capitulates, you can see that it kind of comes to the support zone down here, and then that is around this same level that we reach during this accumulation phase. And this accumulation phase occurs for quite a long period of time, actually. So once we come down, we don't go back up for another 581 days. At least that's what happened last time. Now, if you look over here, where we currently are, you can see that Litecoin had the same capitulation candle here. So this corresponds to the same thing. So if we were to just draw a line here and draw it out, you can see that we are currently at that level of support. All right, so if we continue to repeat the cycle, and I'm not saying that we're definitely going to, so go ahead, and I hope some of you who are dying to say something about that just recognize that I do understand that history does not always repeat. But if it continues, if this cycle continues, then we're likely, this is probably a pretty good time to increase your holdings if you're a Litecoin fan. In fact, I increased some today. But potentially, we might see something where we're just going to oscillate around this area for the next, several months. So if we were to continue to do what we did in the past, and we went out, say, 581 days, then where would that put us? It would put us there in May of 2021. Which actually I think I should move it back a little bit because it looks like we've already bottomed potentially. So let's move it back here. Let's just suppose that this was where our bottom was and we're just going to accumulate now. So that puts us in April of 2021. All right? So what does that mean? Why is April 2021 significant? Well, Bitcoin in 2017, around that first quarter of 2017, that's when Bitcoin hit its previous all-time high. All right, so that could be what we're looking at. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that we're gonna be in this accumulation phase for this long. It just, what I think is a better measurement is we're likely going to be in this range until Bitcoin hits a previous all-time high. If that is 5 months from now, that is when I think Litecoin is going to really pick it up. If that is 581 days from now, that's when I think a good time to get into Litecoin would be if you're really about to expect gains from the Bitcoin rise. So I know many of you guys get frustrated with these losses and these bear markets, but just know that if you're new to the space, if you were not around during this time frame over here, the sentiment was pretty similar. We saw a negative 96% loss followed by a 300% gain, and then an accumulation phase. Then we've seen an 8,000% gain followed by a 90-something% loss. Maybe like a 500% gain, and then now we've come back down, a 50% loss, and now we're likely entering an accumulation period. Now this all hedges on what Bitcoin's doing. So, I mentioned that Bitcoin is very dependent on that 20-week moving average in terms of holding it as support during a bull market. So you can see in the last one it held it as support, and then we held it as resistance during the bear. Now currently, if you look at what Bitcoin is doing, you can see we broke that 20-week moving average, came up, and then came back down. So until Bitcoin can hold the 20-week, I don't really consider us to be in a strong bear market, because historically that's what's had to have happened for Bitcoin to be in that bull market. Once Bitcoin holds the 20-week moving average, I think that from there it can build back towards its all-time high of around $20,000, and then that's when I think Litecoin will take off. So I would keep an eye, as I mentioned in my other videos, keep an eye on the 20-week moving average. Of course, with Litecoin, it does behave differently than some other coins, like Ethereum. In another video, I note that Ethereum takes off typically once Bitcoin holds the 20-week moving average. So they all kind of behave differently. There's not just a general altcoin market. Many of them follow different trends and take different paths. And I think Litecoin has its own path, and I think this cycle is likely to repeat again. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what plays out. And then if you just look, I think this is a really informative chart, just Litecoin versus Bitcoin. If we were to draw a line at previous levels of support, you can see that this acted as support twice here, and that's where we currently are. Now, it acted as support here, but ultimately we broke it. So what would have to happen for us to see something like this? Okay, so if you can imagine, if this were to happen, where we were to come down like this, okay, and then at some point we were to spike up, what would have to happen? Let me fix that. Okay, what would have to happen? So all that has to happen is if you look at their price of Litecoin with respect to Bitcoin, we're at around, you can see 0.006. If we were to drop down here, we'd be at 0.003. What does that mean? If Bitcoin reaches its previous all-time high of $20,000 and Litecoin's value stays the same with respect to the US dollar, like, I mean, it might not be doing anything. In fact, as I mentioned, it could just be in this range doing a whole lot of nothing for a little while. If it does that, then its ratio with respect to Bitcoin will fall until Bitcoin reaches its previous all-time high, and then it'll skyrocket if the cycle repeats itself. And when it does go up, it goes up quickly. Now, if we were just to look to see at this period here, it went up. Sorry, I should probably do a price win too, so we can see how much it went up. If we were to take it from there to there, it went up 700% in 4 weeks. Okay, it can go up quickly. When it does, you don't want to leave money sitting on the table and miss that rise. So if you really like Litecoin, I think now is probably a decent time to buy. I'm not saying this isn't financial advice or anything. This is just what I'm doing. It's probably going to oscillate, plus or minus $10, $20 for the next however long until Bitcoin reaches its previous all-time high, and then that'll be a good time, I think, to move to really look at Litecoin to see where it's going to go. So I'm not gonna just say we're about to go up immediately. I don't think this is gonna happen. So if that's what you're looking for, if that's the kind of content, that's not me. I'll tell you what I think is going to happen. I think we're going to be in this range until Bitcoin reaches its previous all-time high. So I hope you guys like this content. If you do, please like and subscribe to the channel, and we will be doing updates in the future, so you can stay tuned. If following the day-to-day of crypto isn't really your thing, and you just want to know these longer term momentum shifts, then I'll definitely cover it with Litecoin as well as many other coins. Alright guys, that's it for this video. See ya.